Hey, I'm Rohan Singh. I'm from Hamilton, New Zealand, and this is how I got into Brown. So in high school, I generally tried to spend a lot more time on my extracurricular activities as opposed to my academics. I'd say about 70% of my time was actually channeled towards stuff outside of school, and only a small portion was targeted towards my schoolwork. So some of these activities included founding 2 school speakers series events in my second to last year of high school. One was sport themed and one was university or academics themed, and I brought in well-known domestic speakers to offer advice to my school's students. And this year, or in 2020 that is, I took that idea online during COVID restrictions to found Youth Careers NZ, which attracted 200 students nationally across the country, and it was designed to give them unconventional, non-traditional career advice. And that was where I invited speakers like Ashley Bloomfield, the man who made New Zealand COVID-free, Rez Ghardy, the Young New Zealander of the Year in 2017, and Chloe Swarbrick, the youngest MP in Parliament. My other major activities included debating, where I've debated for 5 years at my school. In 2020, my team managed to win regionally, and I was also selected as captain of debating for the year as well. There was also rowing, where I joined for 1 season as part of the under-18 boys novice 8s, and that crew managed to win at the Māori Cup, which is the national tournament for rowing in New Zealand. There were also other things such as Model UN. I went to 2 New Zealand Model UN events before going as part of the NZ delegation to Harvard and Yale Model UN as well. I was also involved with the Yale Young Global Scholars summer program as well. I was also selected as a school prefect, which is a staff appointed leadership position for my final year of high school, and implemented a new training scheme in my school to develop junior debaters as well. I was also a semi-finalist in a national business competition, and also there was a bunch of other stuff as well. So after school, I would usually take a break until about 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then I would spend typically about 1 hour focusing on school homework and academics. Again, I tried to focus most of my time on stuff outside of academics. There's usually a lot going on outside of the classroom, and I'd spend the rest of the night focusing on those. It could be anything from research to college essays, to anything with event organization. That being said, there were times when my schedule really did ramp up. For example, at the start of my second to last year of high school, I had to simultaneously train in a rowing crew while organizing a school event. So during those kinds of times in the year, I was looking at completing an afternoon rowing training, getting back home, and organizing all the logistics for the event, going to sleep and waking up for morning training. And then there was also other times where COVID lockdowns pushed all my exams in a couple of months, where essentially that entire 2 months would have just been me cramming. So there were a lot of times during the year where I had a lot of free time, and other times where things were extremely busy. I would recommend during summers to take a moderate amount of time off just with your friends and family, because I think that taking a break is just really important for the entire process, and also just in general to have, you know, a lot of fun during your teenage years. So I think taking long breaks during the summer, during the holidays, is key. So for standardized testing, I took the SAT, where I got a 1530 with a 730 on the reading writing section and an 800 on the math section. When I was preparing for it, I actually spent about 95% of my time just focusing on the reading writing section. That was a section which I found really tough. I had to put in a lot of energy just to get that score above a 700, whereas for the math section, fortunately I found that one a bit easier so I could get away with less preparation for it. So my advice for the SAT is to not get too stressed about it and don't spend too much time on it, but just identify what your weaknesses are and optimize those. I also took 2 subject tests. I took Math Level 2, where I got 770, and Chemistry, where I got 780. So if I didn't get into Brown on the early decision program, I would have applied to 13 schools listed on the screen. The reasons for each school were very specific and is dependent on the school itself. For example, for places like UCLA and NYU, I picked them largely because of the vibrancy of their location, whereas for the Ivy Leagues, it was more about the university's academic structure and offerings and their professors. I picked Brown because of its open curriculum, as I'm still very undecided as to what I want to major in. Something which really appealed to me was that out of all of the Ivy Leagues, Brown seems to give the most freedom to their students on how they navigate their academic journey, and that was something which really appealed to me. I also really like how Brown fosters a collaborative academic environment. This was something which really appealed to me because I think it's important to go to a place which is academically rigorous but also not too toxic or cutthroat. From what I've heard, it really sounds like students at Brown are competing against themselves as opposed to against their peers. The main problem I faced with the personal statement was writing about personal topics and being genuine with what I was saying. The problem is that I got caught into a mentality where I was trying to engineer these ideas which seemed like they sounded good. In reality, the voice in the essay didn't really sound like me. So a week out from the deadline, I had actually scrapped all of my previous drafts and wrote about a completely new topic. It ended up producing a much better essay than the drafts I'd already had because this was now a personal topic which, gave the admission officers my voice. So my advice isn't to write the personal statement a week out from the deadline, but just to make sure that you're writing about a personal topic and that you're writing very genuinely as well. For letters of recommendation, I feel like there isn't too much to say other than to pick teachers which like you and teachers that you have a good relationship with, because it is quite likely that those are the ones that will go the extra mile for you when writing that recommendation. And my other piece of advice is to talk to them in person first about it when you first ask them to write it, and then after that initial conversation to send the emails of all the portal requests and information about your activities and accomplishments over. My final advice about the college admission process is just to relax, don't panic, and just channel your energy into the things that you can control. The other thing is to also make sure that you're taking time to recuperate, take lots of breaks, and therefore you can function more effectively. The other thing, this is a bit controversial, but if you can, I would recommend minimizing the amount of time which you spend on academics. For example, if a teacher recommends you to do a piece of homework which you don't think will actually be effective in helping you for an exam, then I would suggest that you spend that time doing something else. I think for the US admission process, you don't necessarily need to be the best of the best when it comes to grades. As long as you have good grades and then a very strong case for yourself outside of school, that will generally be what gets you in. The other thing is, beyond a very strong application or CV, the US admission process is extremely subjective, based off emotion, and it's very holistic. So don't underplay the importance of the essays. Although the grades and the activities are important, I personally think that the essays are the most important part of the application because they add all of the personality and all of the razzle-dazzle over what you've already done in high school. And I think that is the sort of thing which will get you into the selective colleges because everyone has strong CVs that are applying.